Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos, fired up here with us. Hopefully that work week is in the rearview mirror for you. If it is not, we'll get you to the finish line here on ESPN Baton Rouge. Preston Guy in 15 minutes talking LSU football. Should the Saints trade Chris Olave? What happened in SEC baseball last night? What is to come in SEC baseball this evening? We're talking about all of it right here, and we're brought to you by Corks. Check the menu out online, corksfishandshrimp.com. I'll be pretty honest with you. Major last day of school vibes going on here at Guarantee today. Because, well, one, it's that time of year, but two, with T-Bob having his last day, had a little bit of a party after OTB this morning. There are some folks walking around this office, I'm not going to name any names, that have some buzzes going on from some of the champagne shenanigans and mimosas that were being passed out earlier. I abstained from all of that. Beck, I trust that you did as well.
You're a professional. Just
such a pro here that we don't want to put our show in jeopardy at all, but there were some who imbibed a little bit. So there's some, we got a golf tournament on out there. There's some last day of school vibes here, but we'll lock it in. Let's get things started the same way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, we're starting where you would imagine we're going to start. Last night in Columbia, South Carolina, the Gamecocks 6, LSU 5. There are a lot of levels to this one, guys. It starts here. That was an awful loss. Awful. It was awful based on the opponent you were playing. It was awful based on the time of the year and the spot in the season. It was awful based on the score in the late innings. It was awful on so many levels, the way that result unfolded last night. Awful. And that's the most important thing. You lost the game. Because at this point in time, I don't really care how you play. I just care what the result says. And they need to win 2 games this weekend. They had a golden opportunity with their closer in the game in a 2-run lead with 6 outs to record, and they could not do it. And that is gutting for the fan base. I know you were all in the middle of it last night, and certainly for the team. So that's number one. Number two here is Zach Cowan. If y'all listen every day, you're aware of my feelings on 2 weeks ago in College Station. He was on the mound when you lost the first game, and he was on the mound when you gave up the lead and lost the third game. My contention after Texas A&M was that he didn't pitch that poorly. He gave up a leadoff triple in the first game on a breaking ball that might have been off the plate away, and the guy hit it off the end of the bat, down the line, and it just landed barely fair. I didn't think it was awful. The home run that Caden Sorrell hit was a great swing by a great player. It was a fastball. It was at the knees. It was outer third. You can't walk him. You got to throw it over the plate. And the kid made a great swing. I didn't think anything of Zach Cowan's outing in College Station 2 weeks ago. And then he came back last week against one of the best lineups in the nation in Arkansas and pitched 3 shutout innings in a win. It was great. He pitched awesome. Last night, he was bad. He did not pitch well last night. And I say that because he fell behind a little bit. I say that because he got too much plate. He got knocked around. They hit the ball off the wall twice. They hit the ball over the wall once. He just did a bad job. And I'm just telling you, there aren't any pitchers in college baseball who start in middle of February and go through late June and are perfect the whole way. And Zach Cowan has not been. I don't think it's a huge cause for concern. I don't think it was egregious for Jay Johnson to put him in the game in the 8th inning and then to leave him in the game in the 9th, even though he gave up some hard contact. I've read a bunch of that as well. He's your closer. He's been sensational all year. He's going to be a finalist for the National Stopper of the Year, and he pitched like garbage last night, and it happens. It was a terrible spot for it to happen. It happens. But I excused the one in College Station. I understood what was going on there. I didn't think he made bad pitches. He got tattooed last night. I don't have another way to say it. So that's the second piece to this puzzle. The third piece here is that LSU dominated this baseball game for 5 innings. Dominated it. And really only had a 3-1 lead to show for it. You grounded into double plays in the second and the fourth when you had runners on first and second. And the only reason that pitcher is out there is to throw sinkers and hit ground balls. And if you were listening to the show yesterday, I said, look, everything he throws sinks. He has no life on his fastball. He's out there trying to hit ground balls, and if you don't get under the baseball and drive it, you're going to roll over some stuff. And LSU hit the ball pretty hard on the ground and rolled into multiple double plays that were hurtful. And then the fifth inning where you should have taken complete control of the game and you were just boneheaded on the bases. Michael Braswell ran through a stop sign. That's unacceptable for a freshman. It is unacceptable for a senior to run through a stop sign at that spot. Can't happen. And then Derek Curiel doesn't slide. And I've gotten texts about this. I've read on the internet about this. I have watched that play 11 times this morning where Curiel doesn't slide at third. And I cannot tell from the camera view that I'm given what Josh Jordan's signal means. He is clearly telling Derek Curiel to not overrun the base. You can see that. But I can't, without hearing him, I can't tell if he's saying stop right here or if he's telling him to slide. Either way, Curiel's got to get on the ground. I don't know if you're analyzing that and you are absolutely affirming that Josh Jordan did something wrong. I don't know what camera angle you're looking at. I've watched it 11 times. And he's pointing at the bag, which means don't overrun it, but I can't tell if he's saying get down or not. Either way, it's got to happen. And to get two guys thrown out at third base in one inning is just indefensible. That stuff can't happen. I can handle kicking a ground ball in the infield. I can handle at times giving up a home run. I can handle striking out. I cannot accept those kind of mental base running errors. You can't make those plays at this point of the year. So that was brutal from LSU. Now, another piece to this pie that I am not going to skip over, I've given you the top three things here. Awful loss. Cowan was bad. Base running and early opportunities were squandered in 3 of the first 5 innings. But Jaden Newt and Chase Shores were good. Newt ran out of gas and gave up the triple and the single, and then Shores came in and threw 2 great innings. But those 2 guys have pitched well lately and can be counted on moving forward. That's, I think, a very encouraging thing from last night in a very discouraging game. Newt was commanding the changeup well. He threw a couple of breaking balls. The fastball was up to 95 last night. I thought he looked great. And then Chase Shores in this new bullpen role really looks pretty comfortable. They've shortened up the delivery. He's going out of the stretch. That fastball is running at 97. He got it up to 100 last night. That was an encouraging piece to the game, even though you lost. And then there's this. You started Connor Ware, which I didn't have a big problem with. Like, I would have started Newt. I said that yesterday, but you started Connor Ware. Connor Ware is out of runway. It's too late to find it. And he will probably pitch some in the postseason because you have to basically use everyone in the course of a regional in Omaha, especially if you lose a game, and that's just the way it goes. You can't just get by with 4 or 5 guys. But expecting him to find some other gear is now unreasonable because he hasn't found it all year. He's been mediocre at times. He's been okay at times. He's been not great at times. Last night was atrocious. He hits the guy with the first pitch he throws, walks another guy in the first inning, gets out of it double play, and then you come back and walk the bases loaded in the second. I tweeted this out. I said it yesterday. It was my number 1 key to the weekend. South Carolina is not going to do this on their own. You're going to have to help them because they're not any good. And to go out there and immediately put 3 guys on base via the walk in the second inning without them ever taking the bat off their shoulders is just unacceptable. You cannot do that. And you just handed him a run. Now, Newt came in and put the fire out, only gave up 1 run, but they got a run on it. And every run was precious last night. So Connor Ware was a guy that in the fall, they did not score a run off of him in the fall. Not one time. He was the best pitcher on the staff. And he was good before the season. Jay Johnson talked him up. I certainly talked him up. He was kind of the talk of preseason as far as the pitching staff goes. And I thought he would be their Griffin Herring this year. And it just has not materialized. So you're probably going to see him again, but he's not taking that next step, and that's very disappointing because you only have so many guys, and you were looking for a couple guys to step forward, and I don't think Ware is going to be one of those guys. Maybe he's a situational lefty. You do have Primo, and you got Cooper Williams, and Dalton Beck is even on the roster, but that's a disappointing thing from last night. The offense was a C last night for me. Because they got 11 hits. That's a lot of hits. You got the home run from Dickinson. You created a lot of opportunities, but you also squandered some of them. So it wasn't one of those games where the bats completely went to sleep. We have seen that a little bit. This was not that. But it wasn't good enough. That pitching staff is bottom of the barrel. They've been just getting lit up like a Christmas tree for 3 weeks, and LSU didn't do enough. That's a staff that you ought to score 9, 10 runs off of. I realize it's a tall ask in a conference game, but you got to be a little bit better than that, and they weren't. So this is a very, very disappointing loss. It is not a crippling loss. But at one point last night, I looked up, and we'll talk about the rest of the SEC coming up in 15 minutes. I looked up, and Auburn was losing, and Vanderbilt was losing, and Arkansas was losing, and Alabama was losing, and everybody around LSU in the RPI was losing, and LSU had a 2-run lead with Cal on the mound, and I was going, this is about to be monstrous. And then Vandy hit a walk-off home run with 2 strikes and 2 outs in the last inning, and LSU coughed it up, and all of a sudden it didn't look as good as it once did while I'm monitoring all these games. It's a very, very, very disappointing loss on a number of levels. And you sit here now, LSU's 40-13, which is very good. They're 17-11 in the SEC, which is still a position of strength. And you've got your best 2 guys going the next 2 games. But that was a very, very, very disheartening loss because you had your dude out there. So now your bullpen's a little bit compromised. You don't have Calvin today. You don't have Newt today. You don't have Shores today. You do have Kason Evans, who's not in a starting role, so you can use him when you need to. But you need Kate Anderson and Anthony Ianson to go out there over the next 2 days and probably throw 14 innings for you. And that's something they're very capable of. That's something they've done a lot this year, but you're going to need it in the biggest spot of the season here as they finish the regular season. A disappointing loss for LSU last night. 6-5 was the final against South Carolina. So that's your Genesis opening drive here on this Friday. I always love to remind you about my friends over at Corks. If you're doing a catering, whether it's a graduation party, birthday party, having a family reunion this summer, and you need to feed a bunch of people, Corks is always happy to do that for you. Got those big, big trays of those crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp, shoestring fries, hush puppies, honey butter rolls. We've also got your crawfish etouffee. All of it is right there at Corks. Check out the menu, including their catering packages at corksfishandshrimp.com. That's corksfishandshrimp.com. We'll come back and talk some football with Preston Guy. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
I realize it's probably not the right thing to make light of when 11 inmates escape from Orleans Parish Prison. That's a pretty serious situation. But one of them has been caught at Hotel Montleon. Is that correct?
I saw a picture on Twitter, and there were Louisiana State Police vehicles outside the Hotel Montleon, which is where the carousel bar is.
So hypothetically, guy might have busted out of the clink, gone straight to get a beverage at the carousel bar. Yeah. So that begs the question, Preston Guy. If you bust out of prison in New Orleans, where are you heading first?
Man, out away from New Orleans, probably.
If you're smart.
Get far away. This guy just wanted a cocktail. Now he's headed back to the clink. So
I'm going to Mississippi in the woods. That's where I'm going.
Hiding in the woods. Well, we'll know where to look for you at that point. At this, so I'll be able to help authorities if there's some sort of reward involved. All right, let's talk some LSU football. Kind of the dog days of LSU football. If we're being honest, not a ton going on. This is generally the time where the coaches can step away before camp season really cranks. But there are a few things that I'd like to talk about. First, let's get your thoughts on SMU and LSU home and home.
Yeah, first off, I love that it's a home and home, although I will question the usage of their terminology for home and home, because it sounds to me a lot like SMU has a lot of intentions to move their games from, their stadium that I believe seats 40,000 people to probably AT&T Stadium there in Dallas-Fort Worth where the Cowboys play. So, calling it a home and home is kind of a, not true situation, but it is nice to see at least trending in the direction of more home and homes in college football. We see LSU going to Clemson this year. That's amazing. I think that's great for college football. And, even Verge Osbury acknowledged that this is what the fans want, so they've listened, and, there's probably less financial money on the table for LSU to do this versus a neutral site. But I just, more so than anything, I like the general direction. Also, I want to throw it. SMU is not going to be a program that's going to, roll over and be a gimme win anytime soon. I mean, that program under NIL is cooking right now. So that's going to be a good quality opponent you get. Maybe not a true blue blood, but it's going to be a good, fun game. And like I said, my favorite part about it is we're trending back with getting more home and homes in college football. It feels like a big win for the fan.
If I gave you autonomy and I gave you Verge Osbury's job and you got no input from Brian Kelly, you were just in charge of putting LSU's football schedule together moving forward, would you be calling Florida State and Clemson and Ohio State and Oregon, or would you be calling Purdue and Texas Tech and Boston College?
Look, I've had a game plan ready to roll for this job for a very long time.
Excellent. I want to hear about it.
I am ready for this position if they ever call me. We're going to schedule a week 0 cupcake every year.
Okay.
Every year. You're going to add that extra bye week to your schedule, give your team a warm-up game, get the kinks out. And, we're going to do one marquee premier game a year. It's going to be the Florida States of the world. It's going to be the Ohio States. And we're going to do a home and home. We're going to go there, or they're going to come here, and it's going to be awesome. Remember the West Virginia series years back, that home and home. How much fun was that? We're not going to do neutral site games very consistently, and then you're going to play 2 teams in Louisiana. And that's how it's going to work, all right? So if we're ever interested in AD Preston, that's how your non-conference is going to look every single year.
It's interesting. Everybody's kind of got different thoughts on it, but I can tell you have put some thought into that for sure. You're seeing a lot of preseason polls that are starting to come out now that the portal is essentially wrapped up and rosters are basically set. Your thoughts on LSU and Clemson, LSU being a top 5 in a lot of polls and Clemson teetering around the top of a lot of polls. Yeah,
I've seen Clemson as high as number 1 in some polls, which I think is certainly interesting. I think one thing that is interesting seeing these preseason polls, it's like any year in the past where there was no de facto bona fide great football team out there, at least on paper coming into the season. It's like, well, I'll just give it to Saban. You know what I mean? So it's like any team that was number 1 in the past 15 years has either been Alabama or some team that looks really stacked on paper. And for the first time, think about this, the last time we didn't have that as a situation, we're talking about the days before Tim Tebow was playing football. So it's just interesting to see a team like that. And I don't think there is any team in college football who is truly head and shoulders above much other teams. I've seen a lot of hype around Texas, but that's putting a lot of faith in a guy who has not been a full-time starter yet, in Arch Manning. So in terms of LSU, where they're ranked right now, I think a lot of teams look at LSU's roster and they're like, man, that's a pretty complete roster. You've got a lot of portal guys coming in that are going to make an impact. You got a 5th-year, the leading returning passer in college football is coming back, Garrett Nussmeier. And, you've retooled him with a bunch of weapons. I think fans are looking at that like, look, I don't know how the chemistry is going to work out because, sometimes you get the team on paper and then how they actually play together are 2 completely different things. So I understand the hesitation, but I think nationally guys are starting to look at these rosters and be like, that's one of the more complete rosters in the country. If I went to the bank and withdrew 2 crisp 20s and a 10, gave you $50 to head to the window, and you had to bet an SEC player to win the Heisman, would you put it on Nussmeier? SEC player to win the Heisman. Okay. Lenora Sellers, Arch Manning, somebody in Tuscaloosa, Simpson. Yeah, I would put it on Nussmeier. I will put a caveat on this. Arch Manning is going to have to do less than everyone in the country to win that Heisman. What I mean by that, he's going to get that Manning hype. He's got the name. He's got the brand. So if Arch Manning goes out there and throws 35 and 12 for 3,800 yards, he's going to be at least in New York. So I think that he's going to have an easier time in that respect. But I have no idea what Arch Manning's going to do as a player. I just have no clue. So I wouldn't throw any money on him. Yeah, I would probably, in the SEC, I would throw my money on Art Nussmeier preseason.
And we'll see what happens at SEC Media Days coming up in July. But that, is, at least in my contention, is such a strong place to start the season for LSU, where you're entering the season in a spot where I think more than 5 out of 10 people would suggest you've got the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, no, I would say preseason. I would be surprised if he's not, when we come in the media days, if he's not first team all conference. I mean, that's what you're expecting, right?
Yeah, I mean that. I think so. I think. I'm cautiously optimistic at this point for the entirety of the year. Speaking of cautiously optimistic, that's kind of how you have to live in the recruiting world. I know you just wrote up a story on 5-star offensive lineman Darius Gray for Tiger Bait. What can you tell us about that big time prospect?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this: it is interesting and different to see LSU going all across the country for these offensive linemen. Of course, this guy's out of Richmond, Virginia. He's rated as the number 1 interior offensive lineman. And between talking to him and working through the grapevine, whispers and rumors, I feel very confident in LSU's chance with him. He takes an official visit June 13th, and I feel really good. What was interesting, I believe he told me it was either 6 or 7 official visits he's planning on taking in June, which – I actually had to go look up the rule. Apparently now in recruiting, you're allowed to take unlimited official visits, just 1 for each school. So this guy's going to town with the OVs here. But I anticipate, I think LSU's in a position where they can close strong if they have a good, strong visit on June 13th. He told me he wants to commit in the fall, but I would be a little surprised if, let's put it like this, I wouldn't be surprised if LSU was able to steal the deal on him sooner than that. I wouldn't surprise me at all. So I think LSU's in good position, and all of a sudden, hey, watch out for this 2026 class. It's looking very strong.
It's a staff that can really recruit, NIL or not. They've done a really good job of stocking the shelves with high schoolers. It's just a matter of developing them and keeping them around for the long haul. But Preston, I don't want to alarm you, but I will not be here next Friday, so you will be speaking with a coach. I know you're comfortable in that role, but I just wanted to prepare you 7 days out.
Look, Hunt. At this point, it's just I'm used to it, man. You're not a Friday worker like the rest of us. Me and Musso, we handle it down on Fridays. We're the guys. We're not walking out early on the weekend. We're here to work.
I wish I could tell you I'd be listening, but I will not be listening next Friday. I will be on the golf course, and that's where I want to be. So that's where we'll be. But we'll talk in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Preston.
All right, Hunt. See you soon.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. All your LSU football coverage, they got you covered over there. TigerBait.com. Press is with us every single Friday. All right, when we come back, let's talk about what happened in the SEC last night and what is to come today, because a lot of it does very much affect LSU directly. So we'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Sedan all the way to SUV, entry level all the way up to the highest end. All of those vehicles come with the same baseline safety features, and the entire line was given the IIHA top safety picks. Some of them were top safety picks plus. When you get behind the wheel of a Genesis that you're driving one of the safest cars on the road. You can get behind the wheel and feel the comfort. You can see all the incredible technology. The brand ambassadors can help you out with all the bells and whistles that come with those incredible vehicles. But you don't know until someone else tests it just how safe that vehicle is, and I can promise you it is among the safest on the road. That's a big, big deal as folks are shopping for vehicles. That's a big, big deal for you. Make sure Genesis is on your list. Go by and see them. Airline at Pico. It's across from Women's Hospital. If you're in the market for a vehicle in Baton Rouge, you're probably on Airline Highway. How about one more stop? One stop that you may not have made in a previous purchase. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, and you can find them online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Got a hankering for a po' boy? No better spot in Baton Rouge than Corks. Get you one of those big overstuffed jumbo shrimp po' boys. Fantastic stuff over there at Cork. Shout out to the family over there at Cork. Of course, that's Paul and Michael Medinka. Started their restaurant touring here in Baton Rouge over across the river at Kuyon's, which was featured earlier this week on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. So great stuff for the Medinka fam. They've been a great partner of ours here on the Hunt Palmer Show, bringing you Friday shows for over 2 years now. So check them out online, corksfishandshrimp.com. All right, just such a busy and eventful day in the SEC. Yesterday, I want to run through that briefly. We'll get back to LSU, and Koki Riley will join us from Columbia coming up in 25 minutes or so, straight up 2 o'clock. Texas A&M busted out to a quick start in Athens. They were up 3-0 in the top of the first inning, but 7 spot from Georgia came pretty quickly in the third. Dogs were hitting bombs all over the place. Robbie Burnett hit his 20th home run of the season, and Georgia beat Texas A&M 10-6. Also in that game, Caden Sorrell, who hit the big home run off LSU, off of Zach Cowan to win Game 3, got hit in the hand and was immediately taken out of the game. It didn't look like he could flex it, so I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to speculate on what injury might be, but A&M's toast. I would be stunned if they won the next 2 games, and I'd be even more stunned if they got into the field of 64. They're 10-18 in the league right now. Georgia, on the other hand, is holding on to that top spot in the RPI. They now have 17 league wins. That brings them even with LSU. So Georgia very, very much in the mix for a top 8 national seed. They win last night behind a solid pitching effort out of the bullpen from JT Quinn, who took over for the starter Charlie Goldstein, who couldn't get out of the first inning. So Georgia beats Texas A&M. Really dramatic game in Gainesville. A big 3-run homer from Justin LeBron puts Alabama ahead, and then Florida comes back and wins it in the 9th inning. That helps LSU. Theoretically, Alabama is 2 games behind LSU in the league standings, 1 spot behind LSU in the RPI entering yesterday. So Florida, who's fighting, scrapping, and clawing, and might host a regional after starting 1-11. But they are now 14-14, so that means some quick math there. They have gone 13-3 in their last 16 league games. Sensational stuff down there in Gainesville. So they win Game 1 7-6. LSU, I think, comfortably right now ahead of Alabama for a national seed spot. I'd be just fine if Florida went ahead and finished that deal this weekend. Missouri got back to their old tricks last night. If you missed this, of course, Missouri went and swept A&M, so they come home. They're going to stay hot? No. They gave up 25 runs last night. 25 runs Mississippi State put on Missouri. Mississippi State now 13-15. I think they're in the NCAA tournament. They need to probably win one more to feel good about it, but I think they're in even without a head coach. So Mississippi State scores 25 runs on 23 hits last night. Incredible ball game in Nashville that was really disappointing to me. Vanderbilt was 1 game behind LSU entering the day yesterday. Vanderbilt was down to their final out and down 2 runs last night and hit a walk-off 3-run home run against Kentucky. Wildcats may need 1 more win to get into the field. Vanderbilt's trying to get a national seed. They've got a better RPI than LSU. They did not play Missouri. They've got a stronger strength of schedule than LSU. They've got more quad 1 wins than LSU. And now they've drawn even in the conference standings. So need Kentucky to show up at some point this weekend. Thought they had that one last night, but they lose with a 3-run homer in the 9th inning. Speaking of home runs, Texas got a big one late in the game from Max Ballou, who has not played in a month. He was last year's Big 12 Player of the Year. He got hurt this year, was taking some BP a couple of weeks ago, is now back to being able to hit. He had a big home run last night, and Texas wins the game. I believe that Kyson Witherspoon pitched last night. I'm 98% sure he did pitch. I'm going to look up the box score right now, but if Texas did beat Kyson Witherspoon in Norman, which they did, Witherspoon threw 6 1/3 and only gave up 2 earned runs, struck out 8. But the bullpen could not hold it. Texas scores 3 off of the bullpen in the final 2 2/3 innings to beat Oklahoma. So Texas has won the SEC. They've got 21 league wins. They can roll over the rest of the weekend in Norman and in Hoover. Their work is completely done as far as the top 8 seed goes, but good for them to get off the mat after losing 5 of their last 6 SEC games. And then Ole Miss, really strong performance last night by Hunter Elliott, who kind of looked like his old self. He's had a lot of control issues this year, has not thrown the ball over the plate enough, so he hadn't gone deep into games. He was great last night, and he completely handcuffed Auburn, who did not score until the 9th inning. Ole Miss beat him 9-2. In that game, Elliott goes 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts. So Auburn still now 1 game behind LSU in the conference standings. They're ahead of LSU in the RPI. They have a better strength of schedule. They have those metrics favor them. So does quad one wins. But LSU's got a lead in the series, of course, in the conference. Auburn swept LSU, which is another data point we've got to keep in mind as well. So it was good for LSU that Ole Miss won. If Ole Miss wants to go ahead and take care of business in that one, that'd be fine by me. Rebs are trying to get a host spot, so they got a lot to play for in Oxford. And then a lot of fireworks, a lot of home runs, a lot of offense in the game last night. Tennessee and Arkansas. Tennessee comes out on top. They scored 10 runs on 15 hits in that game to beat Arkansas at Baum Walker. Just a really, really nice performance by Tennessee all around. And the best news for Tennessee is they won that game behind Marcus Phillips and A.J. Russell, basically. Nate Snead did come in, but they win the game that Zach Root pitched for Arkansas, and now Tennessee gets to throw Liam Doyle tonight. And that's obviously good news for Tennessee. They're really tough to beat when he's on the mound. So Tennessee is a game behind LSU. They're 16-12. Arkansas is a game ahead of LSU. I don't know how much conference standings are going to play into this thing because you're talking about an unbalanced schedule where everybody misses 4 teams. So what 4 teams did you miss and what 4 teams did you miss? Like, if they're really going to take that into account, like, that's a big feather in Vanderbilt's cap, because Vanderbilt is the only team in the SEC that did not play Missouri and did not play South Carolina. LSU gets them both. So that's why Vanderbilt's strength of schedule is so good. That's why their RPI is so good. You look at the conference standings, and I think it can perhaps tell like a kind of a flawed story based on what your strength of schedule is in league play. So LSU just needs to take care of their business. Right now you're sitting on 17 wins, but there are still a lot of teams that are looking at you that are jumbled up together. It's that group of Auburn and Georgia and Vanderbilt and Arkansas and Alabama and LSU and Tennessee. Like, they're all kind of jumbled up. And I was looking at the RPI this morning. Good news for LSU, you only dropped 1 spot. LSU's RPI, even after losing that game to a bad South Carolina team, is still okay. LSU's RPI is 8 right now. But you are in that metric behind Arkansas, behind Vanderbilt, behind Auburn, and behind Georgia. And I believe all of those teams have as many or more quad wins than you, except Georgia, who's 11-10. But Georgia's RPI is 1. So that's a tough hurdle to climb. The feather in LSU's cap here is absolutely and positively the conference standing, because you've got 17 wins and you're playing South Carolina. You've got a real chance to get to 19. It's going to be hard for Georgia to get to 19. They got to win the last 2 games. Auburn can't get to 19. Vanderbilt's going to have to win the last 2 games to get to 19. Arkansas is still on 18. Bama can't get to 19. The 19 league wins is a metric, is one that LSU can have in its favor. Despite the fact that you played Missouri and South Carolina, it's still a number that they're going to get on their sheet. So it's still, LSU's still in a good spot. They really are in a good spot from a resume perspective, but you have to win these last 2 games. If you only win 1, you are leaving that door wide open. So we'll see. There's one more thing that I want to talk about in terms of resume talk that was impactful yesterday, and it's a weird thing that could change day to day, and it did change yesterday. And this is the nerd in me coming out. So this may not be for everybody, but this is something that I'm going to cover on my show. Oregon State is a weird resume for a top 8, and they're a team that could steal one. Their RPI is 6. That is 2 spots better than LSU. But their RPI is inflated a little bit because they played so many road games. The other piece, their resume entering yesterday was terrible from a quad 1 perspective. They only had 5 quad 1 wins. That's LSU has 12. Auburn's got 14. Vanderbilt's got 15. So 5 is really poor. And I pulled up the RPI stuff today, and I went, wait a second, Oregon State's now got 8 quad 1 wins. How did that happen? They didn't play 3 games last night. Well, that means one of their opponents moved into quad 1, and it's Hawaii. Oregon State's got 3 wins over Hawaii, and Hawaii moved into the top 60, and Oregon State played them on the island. So now the nerd in me is going to be monitoring Hawaii's RPI to look at how that impacts Oregon State and their quad 1 wins compared to LSU. I said this last week, it's maybe the most nerdy thing about me. Now, there's plenty of things to pick from, But the fact that I can grind Oregon State's road scheduling habits and how it impacts their RPI and their top 60 wins is not a redeeming social quality that I have. But I have it nonetheless, so you've got it too. It was a noteworthy movement because my big statement against Oregon State is that they didn't have any quad one wins, that they stepped out and played Oregon 4 games and got swept, and now they've got 3 more to add to the cause. So I need Hawaii to lose some games. I'm trying desperately to get LSU a top 8 national seed because y'all have watched. Have you watched LSU play at home? Have you watched LSU play on the road? Do you understand where they need to play these regional and super regional games? It needs to be at the box. And if I got to pull against Oregon State's opponents to get LSU there, well, then that's a cross I'm willing to bear at this point. So LSU right now is still in fine shape. LSU is okay, but you're playing with fire, and I think everyone's well aware with that. So there's still a lot to talk about. I want to come back and kind of preview tonight's game. We'll talk to Koki Riley at 2 o'clock. Still got some Saints to do in the second hour. Get you some scores from the PGA Championship as well. It's a Friday edition. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
All right, closing up hour number 1 here. LSU in South Carolina tonight. We'll talk to Koki Riley from Columbia in 13 minutes. This is very difficult to do, I know. But let's try for the sake of the exercise. Let's try this. Just completely block last night out. Just completely disregard it. And let's just focus on the Friday night game solely. Don't think about Saturday. Don't think about Thursday. Just Friday. Here's what you got today. South Carolina is starting Jake McCoy. He's the only pitcher on their staff who's made 9 SEC starts. In his SEC outings, his ERA is 7.75. SEC opponents hit .313 off of him. He's allowed 10 home runs in 9 starts. The best relief arm that they have is Ashton Crowther, who pitched yesterday. He's unavailable. The second best ERA they have is Parker Marlott, who has a 5.4 SEC ERA. And they used Matthew Becker last night. They don't have anybody else available whose ERA is under 7.5 for tonight. Not a single pitcher on the roster. Not like, oh, this guy's only pitched twice and his ERA is 1.1, but they don't even use him. Like, no one on the stat sheet is under 7.5. LSU is pitching Cade Anderson tonight. Kason Evans is ready to go. Maverick Rizzi is ready to go. I don't know what the issue is and why LSU has not even used. It's crazy. They haven't used him in 3 weeks. And now I can't even remember his name. Dallas Babish transfer, right-handed. Beck, help me out here. LSU bullpen arm. He's from Dallas. Connor Bench. It just wouldn't come. LSU has those guys ready to go behind Cade Anderson tonight. Like, this is, like last night, a mismatch. Trust me, I listened to myself talk yesterday. I heard it. But if you and I said South Carolina's terrible and LSU ought to score a ton of runs, and none of it happened. I get it. It's baseball. Weird stuff happens. Would it stun me if LSU lost tonight? No. But if you just look at this game on paper and realize that last night's over, it's a pretty good spot to be in if you're LSU. They've just got to play a good baseball game. You can't walk 6 guys in the first 2 innings. You can't get thrown out at third twice. You can't throw a wild pitch to end the game. I didn't even talk about that in my first segment. Really nothing that Kate Arambidi could do or Luis Hernandez could do. Cowan just hooked a breaking ball. Just spiked it in the other batter's box. But South Carolina has, I can make a case that Austin Crowther is a decent arm. His SEC ERA is 2.2 in 16 and a third innings, and he's the one that started yesterday. And Brandon Stone has been a starter for them in SEC play. He's started 7 times. Now, his SEC ERA is 8.4, so he's not any good. But, like, those are 2 of their most trusted arms. McCoy is the third. His numbers are atrocious. And nobody that they can go to in the bullpen outside of Parker Marlatt, whose ERA is 5.4, has an SEC ERA under 7.5. Nobody. And LSU is throwing potentially a top 10 pick in the draft. So I understand fully all the LSU fans who have an incredibly sour taste in their mouth over last night. I do too. It was awful. Awful. But if you just boil the game down to today, what are they doing today? It's a very advantageous spot. And if you go out there today and Cade Anderson goes 7 innings and Kason Evans goes 2 and you win the game, you've got the guy pitching as well as anybody in the country going in Saturday's game. Now, here's my recommendation to LSU. I don't know if they're listening. I don't know if they care, but here's my recommendation. In one of the next 2 games, you need to score 13 runs. In one of the next 2. You don't have to do it both games. You can win one of them 7-4. But in one of the games, you need to take the pressure off the pitching staff, off the bullpen, off the late innings, and just crush them. If you don't do that, you are playing with fire based on your bullpen depth. I will say this exact same thing in 2 weeks when we're getting ready from a regional at this point. I'll say the same thing. In one of the regional games, it can be the first game against the 4 seed. It can be the Saturday night game against the bottom end of some number 2 team's bullpen. You need to blow the doors off somebody. They've done that some at home. They did it to Arkansas at home. They did it to Tennessee at home. They're not doing it on the road, and I don't have an answer for that. Arkansas and Tennessee are not appreciably worse than Auburn or Texas A&M. But they got to find some way, somehow, to get it done on the road offensively to just beat the brakes off somebody so that you don't have to use your high-leverage arms multiple times and you can coast to the finish line at some point. That's the best way to win a weekend. You've already used your best bullpen guy in a loss, which really stings. He can probably come back on Sunday for 5 or 6 outs. But he's not pitching tonight. You got Evans ready to go, so you're covered from that perspective. And I think Evans is good for 40 pitches tonight. I know that he threw a lot on Sunday. It is Friday. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off. It's 4 days. But the offense has to break out. Because if you try to walk a high wire and win the next 2 days 6-4, like, you're going to ask some guys who haven't been great for the entirety of the season to be great in big spots. And that's an easy way to let it slip through the cracks. South Carolina doesn't have that issue. Everybody they put out there has atrocious numbers and doesn't throw hard. Everybody. They don't have any other options. LSU has layers to their bullpen. You can't use the top layer all weekend. So the best way to make life easier on the lower layers, hit the baseball. And that's what they have to do. Jake McCoy again. Batting average against an SEC play, 313. 10 homers in 9 starts. Hit the ball out of the yard, score 13 runs, put this team away. It's easy for the overweight radio guy to sit here and say that. A little bit harder to go put into practice, but those guys have it in them. I've watched it with my own eyes. It's got to show up one of the next 2 days. You can ride Anderson or Ianson for one of the games and win a close one. The other one needs to come from the bats. Wrapping things up here, hour number 1 of a Friday show brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. Great po' boys, awesome catfish platters, jumbo Gulf shrimp as well. Try their baked potatoes, covered with crawfish etouffee and those big jumbo shrimp. Awesome, awesome stuff. They're on government between Foster and Jefferson. It's corksfishandshrimp.com. Missed any of the first hour, a lot of baseball talk, a little LSU football as well. You can catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Search Hunt Palmer Show and subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. We will pause for Sports Center, get you caught up on the nation's headlines. When we come back, Koki Riley from Columbia, South Carolina. Close things out on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance, highlandinsurance.com. I give you this story every couple of shows where I went and I was talking to them about some of the reasons they get clients and retain clients over at the Highland Insurance Group. And they had a prospective client who had 5 locations, had a general liability policy that had all 5 locations on it for a $1 million limit. They were able to take that policy and put $1 million on all 5 locations, so $5 million in coverage, and keep the premium basically flat. That's the kind of difference they can make for you. They are technically expertise. If all you've ever done with your insurance renewal as a business owner is just look at the premium line and sign on the dotted line, maybe a second set of eyeballs is best, because you want to make sure that your insurance policy responds properly when you've got that big issue that you were not expecting. Could be a storm, could be a car accident, could be a lawsuit. Make sure your insurance is properly written. The Highland Insurance Group can do that for you. Check them out online, highlandig.com, highlandig.com.